our first panel discussion. We shall take a short break for 15 minutes.
May we also have Mr. Dhawan as well. So if we can open applause, please. Thank you so much.
Visiting faculty, IIM Kashipur. Professor Raturi will be the moderator for the discussion.
We have a round of applause, please. So we have a bouquet as well for you. Next, I would like to call upon Mr. Deepak Dhawan. He is the CEO and founder of Talentonic HR Solutions. May we have you on stage, sir, please.
Next, I call upon stage Mr. Srinath. He is the Group President, Human Resources, CVS Group, Madurai.
Next, can we have Mr. Radhakrishnan? He is the Senior Vice President and Head of Human Resources of ABB India Limited. So, may we have you on stage, please?
Last but not least, can we have on stage Mr. Sood? He is Vice President, Performance Management, Training and Organizational Development, United National Bank, UAE. The panel discussion
started us off with fantastic speeches, but they left us in the dichotomy. On the one hand, we are charged to make a lot of money and become great leaders, and on the other hand, we have to fulfill some social obligations. This fundamental dichotomy is the root of human dilemma, and nowhere does it impact us more than at the time when we graduate from our MBA programs. So, with you as the audience, it is appropriate that we address this transition from academics to industry and ask our panel of experts, what are the biggest challenges? What are the biggest opportunities? How do we navigate this path? Because as soon as we graduate, we'll be confronted with many dilemmas, not just in the workplace, but also in real life. So, with that introduction, what I'd like to do is ask our panelists to give us a short 5-minute review of what they think are the biggest challenges in this transition from academia to industry. And subsequent to that, we'll take questions from the audience. Anybody would like to start? Mr. Dhawan, would you like to start?
Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you. So, actually, I don't like to look upon this transition as a challenge. To be honest with you, sometimes I think it paints a larger than life picture of this whole transition. And it's the big bad world out there, and it's the storm. Prepare yourself. On the ship is the high seas. Sort of what the hell is going to hit you, and what's going to happen. It's really not that. I mean, I like to look upon it not as a significant discontinuity. I like to look upon it as truly a progression, where, there's a step in your life and there's the next step in your life. And that's how it is. And it's not a big bad world out there. The world is actually full of opportunities. I mean, the morning, speaking of Tony, obviously always going to be a huge disadvantage. But he talked about so many success stories. He talked about India having done so much. And so when you look at this transition, I frankly speaking look upon this transition as a continuity. And I like to actually compare, and I've had this discussion I think last night over drinks and dinner. Actually to me, it's, if you look at it, what is the transition? So the transition actually is from creation of knowledge through the practice of knowledge. And that's actually the symbiotic relationship that actually exists between academia and industry. Knowledge is being created and knowledge is being actually practiced. Neither one of these two should become a kind of limitation on each other. But if you look upon it as a continuity, it's like a plane landing, to be honest with you. At 80,000 feet, which is where you are. And please remain at 80,000 feet. The purpose of my giving you this 80,000 feet business is don't come down to 20,000 feet too quickly. At 80,000 feet, you get a view of this world. It's a conceptual view of this world. It gives you frameworks. It shows you accumulated knowledge. It gives you the experience of many people who come before you have succeeded, many people who come before you have failed. It creates models for you. It tells you this is what great leadership is about. It tells you this is why companies become successful. This is why companies fail. Somebody has done all that hard work. Somebody has created all those frameworks and presents those to you in an encapsulated kind of a way. That's looking at this world from 80,000 feet and saying, this is what the world looks like. And as you begin to transition, it's like the plane coming down to land. No threat. Nowadays it happens on ILS and then be a smooth landing, where it's not the big word anymore, but your actual situation and your place in life that has to be now captured by you. So, really, and sometimes I wish there were one path to success. Unfortunately, there is not. Which is why this picture of the big bad world sometimes, there is no one path to success. If there was, and like we were discussing last night, all of us would have read the book Good to Great and all of us would have become great. Right? But that's not what life is. There is not one path to success. Each one of us has an opportunity to carve that path out for ourselves, and that's true leadership. Leadership is partly in learning, but mostly in doing. And the doing part is what you are getting ready for preparing. You have understood at 80,000 feet what this world looks like. Now land and get to work and understand what the real world looks like. It's not in contradiction to the world that is here. So what they did not teach you at Harvard is not true. The frameworks are the encapsulated experiences of many people in many situations. And today you have an opportunity to practice some of them. One little piece of advice is, enjoy your education. Don't let that become your limitation. Because the world is a huge learning opportunity. Don't allow that to become your limitation. I've seen people in my 36, 37 years of life, I've seen people succeed by doing quite the opposite things. And once again, going back to last night, I must tell you about this friend of mine who's an anti-leader by the book, who's a bad manager by the book, but a highly successful man. Highly successful entrepreneur and highly successful. So sometimes when you make the framework and you go by the framework, reality comes and hits you and says, well, I don't have a responsibility. Reality has no responsibility to live as per your framework. Your framework has a responsibility to live as per the reality and to keep accumulating the reality in its own understanding of the world. And that's the true learning opportunity. So don't get captured by your education. Get enabled and empowered by your education. And because there is no single path to success, all the things that Tony talked about in the morning, you need to be intellectually resilient, but everything that he said, and 3-4 more things that I can add to it, but really not. What is it saying? It's saying you have to chart out your own path. You've got the equipment, you've got the ways and means, you understand how corporate sector works, you've been given the tools and techniques of how to understand, slice, dice that performance and manage it. Now the time for you to chart out your own path. And the only one thing in these 5 minutes I'd like to add, I think Tony covered it, but I'm not sure, but it's a point of emphasis for me. As you chart out that place, don't stop learning, don't let education become a limitation, but be empowered by it. And the second thing, make sure you have a moral compass. And that is one thing that I truly believe is missing. So when you talk about socially responsible leadership, or you talk about sustainability, at the end of the day, all that comes down to is choices that individual leaders make on a daily basis about how to run their business. And that choice has to be made by you. And whether you take this choice or that choice will depend upon where your moral compass is. Right? And so therefore, today if you ask me in the corporate sector, one of the things that we keep, he's a good man, he can be trusted. there is wisdom in what he or she says. He or she will do the right thing, not the wrong thing. Is committed. So some of these filters are beginning to come into our understanding of what shapes leadership in organizations. So keep a moral compass, I think, as you go out here. Don't stop learning, don't let education become your, and don't get committed to one methodology, one way of doing things, and one framework. Because reality has very, very surprising ways of coming back at you and saying, you thought this works well, let me tell you, it doesn't. Something else does. And which is why when you look at frameworks and you look at organizations that have been successful, I believe they've been successful by doing quite the opposite things. Thanks very much.
Wonderful, Mr. Dhawan. I think we need all the compass to the same time. Raja, would you like to go next?
Good morning, everybody. So what I might say might sound a little unconventional. Ever since I got this invitation, a couple of weeks after that, we started preparing, and then, me along with my team, we put together some slides so that I could use it for this 5-minute speech. Then something I saw on TV, last Monday. After that, I deleted all those things. It really, sort of transformed me. And then when I think about the transition which happened, and I'll shortly relate to you, what are some of my aspects. I really thought, it's a great story. So let me begin, Have you all heard about a girl called Malala? Yes. So I saw, and it was, I was blown away, not just by the sensationalism of the story. She was shot in the head by the Taliban, and after that, obviously, she's still campaigning for education. Then I happened to pick up this, pick up a book. It's not even 1 year. She was shot on the head on, I think, sometime in October 2012. But within a span of 1 year, it's a complete book about her story. Not only that, she established something called the Malala Fund. And in the Swat Valley where she used to originally hail from, they've already started a college. So, a few things to look at. One, she's only 16 years, right? Within such a short span of time, 1 year, look at the way she's transformed not only her life, but for all those people, who would get benefited from the Malala Fund. And I also thought I'd share this story so that if we can pick up something, from her story, there are many things. One is standing up for your values. How many of us would really, come out having been shot by, some group like the Taliban? Would ever have even the guts to come out and say, look what, you've shot me, but that's the greatest benefit you've done because now the world is willing to listen to me. She made a speech in the United Nations on her 16th birthday. Today, she has kind of, all kind of awards. She's some person, who can pick up the phone and talk to, Barack Obama. So what really, intrigued me was, of course, one was sensationalism and really the guts of this girl. After having been shot, the way she has again come out and very openly and boldly, still fighting for a cause. But the most important thing was within such a short span of time, now they had established almost like an organization, which again, suddenly started work. So this, I think, was really impressed, and I thought I'd share. I'd share this, just like what Deepak was talking about the transition. There are many ways to do it. It's not just one way. So I thought this was something truly remarkable. I really think she really deserves a round of applause, even though wherever she is, right? Yeah. Second, I only want to just one more thing. most of you sitting here already do have some work experience. So it's not that you're probably seeing a corporate organization for the first time in your life. You already fit into the reality a little bit. From my side, what normally we think is when people join, they have a lot of vision. Of course, all management graduates want to become CEOs or want to become, but go beyond that. That is an important assessment point for you. But that alone must not determine your career and your future ambition. I think you must look at a larger cause of doing something for society, something for the next generation, something for the people you work with, something for the teams you work with, and create that value, not just monetary value, but people must believe that if this person is there in my team, there is definite value that is being added. It gives some thoughts, we can go on and on and on, but I think as youngsters, I thought I'll share this with you. I wish you all the very best. And I think all of you have gone through the test of fire, you've gone through CAT, you've gone through your GD, you've gone through interviews, you're all in one of the best management institutes this country can offer. I'm sure God is there with you. Wish you all the best. I'm sure you'll do well in life. Have faith in yourself, live up to the ideals that our parents have taught us, and be honest and good citizens. I think success is there for all of you. God bless you.
What I'm trying to do is put together a set of competencies. I'm a person who's extremely left-brain. I've done the brain dominance as a concept. So I'm trying to put together a set of competencies which would enable and in fact smoothen the entire process for a person like you or for persons like you to make the transition from academia to the industry. And as Mr. Dhawan rightly said, industry is not a monster, who's just waiting to pounce on you. So it's not that you need to have a lot of things in your arsenal. Yes, you need to have competencies which would ensure that you're able to fulfill the requirements. But then there are certain things like domain knowledge, your ability to do things, your ability to execute, which are taken as a given. But there are 6 separate competencies which I was scribbling just last evening after having interacted with some of you, which I thought are quite relevant in today's context, especially after what we are seeing in terms of business scenario at a global level, at a regional level, and what have you. The first and foremost thing which I think in terms of ensuring that kind of smooth transition is obviously a cultural fit with the kind of organization you join. Now that cultural fit can have a number of elements, and the first and foremost which I thought was in terms of tolerance of ambiguity. When you are in an academic institution, things are very structured. There is a lot of systematic thinking which is there, whether it's in terms of the way the lessons are imparted, the way the things are managed. It's all handled in a very structured and, if you may use the word, predictable manner. But that's not how the industry works, and especially so in today's scenario. If you look at, it's been more than 5 years since the Lehman Brothers collapse and the resultant financial meltdown. The paradigm has changed totally. Today you're not talking of even annual operating plans for that matter when it comes to strategic planning. The plans are made probably for a quarter or at best for half a year. So in that kind of a scenario, if you go with a certain set way of functioning, that is something probably which cannot work. So the first point is tolerance of ambiguity. It's extremely important. What leads to this is, or what is the next competency I would say is, have an open mind to things. Don't have preconceived notions. Don't assume that something is going to happen in a very patterned and predictable manner. Have an open mind to things. The third part is problem solving skills. As I was listening to one of the videos of Michael Porter recently, and this was a dated video, probably a decade back, and he said that businesses have a tendency to create problems and then solve them. But then that is the reality. Problems do keep coming up. And what would differentiate a successful professional from a not so successful one is the ability to solve problems. Whether it's troubleshooting, whether it's taking a long-term view on things. In fact, that leads me to the next element or the next competency, and that is pace or agility. Tony spoke in this forum about being nimble-footed, being nimble-minded. I think that is something which is extremely important. Unless there is space in executing, unless there is space or agility in taking decisions, you will not become a successful professional. It's not that you will be expected to take some very strategic decisions as you start functioning, but then even those so-called rudimentary day-to-day operational decisions which you take, you need to have a lot of agility in taking those. The next point which I thought was extremely relevant, and incidentally all these competencies or attributes or whatever you may call are linked to each other, and that is adaptability. Adaptability in the way you work, adapt to the situation, how do you really go about dealing with it? And as some of my colleagues were alluding to this point, that there is not just one sure shot way of success, or there is not just one way of achieving success. There are always alternatives, there are always alternate mechanisms, processes. So there is always a better way of doing things. Be adaptable in terms of how you are going to approach a particular issue, how you are going to approach a particular problem. This also brings me to the element of being close to the customer. In the shortest possible time as you make this transition to the industry, get an understanding of how wealth is generated or created in that particular organization. What is the business model? How does the customer get not just satisfied or delighted or enchanted, but how does the customer stay with you as an organization or stay with your organization, and how the customer keeps creating that kind of business for the organization on a sustained basis. Once you understand that, work as close to the customer as possible. It doesn't mean to say that all of you will be in external customer facing functions. Some of you could be working in some back office or mid office or whatever kind of jobs. But be as close to the next in line customer as possible. Understand and anticipate what the customer wants, and ensure that those requirements are fulfilled in the least possible time and of the desired quality. I think these are some of the thoughts which I have, and we can take the questions later on. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I have a confession to make. Hello, Chair. So I have a confession to make. Can you hear me in the back?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is a secret I have never told anyone. So I'm letting out the secret of my life for the first time. You can't hear it? Hello, Chair. It's a secret. Can you hear me now? In the back? Can you hear me?
Hello.
I haven't told anyone in my life, including my wife, but I'm telling this audience. You've got to listen to this one. So the secret goes something like this. So I made a big mistake when I joined my first job. Like really big mistake. And I was going to write this book, the biggest mistake of my life. But then this idiot in Bombay called Chetan Bhagat beat me to it. So he's already written that book. But here's the secret. So when I first joined my job, the mistake that I committed was saying yes to everyone. Anytime somebody knocked on my door, any project that came along, any committee that came along, I said, no problem, I'll do it. Of course, 3 years into my job, I overextended myself to a point that it was pretty hard to get back from there. Anyway, so I've made a confession. Now what I want my panelists to do is, I want you to reflect back on your first job and tell us what is the biggest mistake you made in the first 3 years of your career And this is the one that you wouldn't want to make again. Is that a possible question you could answer? Okay, who wants to go first? Great.
Very kind of you, Professor, to be honest. It's difficult to be honest. It's easy to speak, but difficult to be honest. When I started my first job, I started with Zenith Computers in Bangalore. And instantly I'm an engineer, so I started marketing later, shifted to HR later. So, possibly again, the mistake I made was to expect everything I studied in my engineering college will be used in my job. And the second possible error, if I go back down memory lane, was to believe that being an engineer, I went out with some skills which my boss was just a commerce graduate did not have. And what I did was quite naive. So I went around telling people that guy is not competent and he tries to be my boss. So I had this dirty habit of speaking about my boss behind his back. And you know, it catches up with you because there are people who are not your all-weather friends. They are there with you, at the same time they are also with the boss. They know where to support you and where to support the boss. And often speaking about you behind your back. The boss was a nice gentleman. He called me. He only gave me this piece of advice. If you think I'm an idiot, if you think there's something that I'm doing is incorrect, I would appreciate if you come and tell me rather than speaking behind my back. So two things. One is, don't expect that everything that you study here will be used. Some of this could be used, many of this may not be used. So that's point number one. So don't get disillusioned with that. That's part of life. The second is, always be direct and transparent when you want to speak your mind. And never indulge in this tea shop, coffee shop rumors. This is something that I started with and I learned a very, very hard lesson of my life. I think I owe it to my boss for having been generous to have kept me in the job. Today, if I have somebody speaking about me, I'll be tempted to fire at them. So I think that's something you must learn, because as people, we always tend to be rebellious at the front and speak behind, whether it's about a lecturer, whether it is about our friends. आगे एक बात करते हैं, पीछे कुछ और. So I think that is something, you know, if you have not done it, great. Be direct, be open, be candid. People will respect you. They may disagree with you, but they will respect you for that. Never speak behind somebody's back. Openness, transparency, I think will stand you in good stead. And that is something that I've learned from my mistake that I did in my first job.
I think I've made plenty of mistakes incidentally in my career, but one of the things which really stands out is having unrealistic expectations. You know, the moment you pass out of business school, you think as if the whole world is going to move around you. That doesn't happen. You feel that today you've joined as management training, within 6 months or 1 year you'll be promoted, and you keep on getting accelerated progression in your organization. That doesn't happen at all. So what is extremely important is have realistic expectations, have a long-term view on things. And this is something which I learned again the hard way, because within the first few years I ended up changing my jobs almost every year. Please don't fall into that trap of thinking that, oh, I'm as if some God's gift to mankind. I need to move on very, very fast and grow in the organization. It doesn't happen like that. Okay. And especially so in today's scenario, where a lot of organizations are struggling with even basic sustenance and surviving on a day-to-day basis. So you have to give it time, you have to make your contribution felt. Have that contribution in very, very tangible terms, accepted by the organization, and then only expect something in return. Thank you.
Let me talk about myself.
I see that's not where I ended up. I ended up in HR. That was the first rotation, you get into something and then it doesn't work out or whatever stuff. So really what I got my first job was Steel Authority, where I joined in 77. So I don't know how many of you have ever seen a steel plant, captive mines, and things of that kind, which is quite an atmosphere to kind of work in. I remember this part of our induction and stuff. I was attached to captive mines, and there was this deputy personal manager in HR. His name was Radhakrishnan. Everybody used to call him. Nice. Only people who build those steel will actually understand this wizened man, weather-beaten, come up, IR, industrial relations, personal, HR, unions, casual labor, transporter, all that kind of stuff. So he's sitting in his office, and all of us full of this youthful kind of energy. Balu was explaining to us something. So with my youthful enthusiasm, I kind of chipped in and told him where he was going wrong and what few things he had to do differently. So Balu was a very quiet. So he just looked up at me and this is how I actually questioned my first mistake. I turned it into a jingle because he turned it into a jingle. So he said, "Vix ki goli lo aur chik chik dur karo." So Dhawan sahab jo kitab aap padh ke aaye na, wo kitab maine bhi padhi. So what? And then I realized that this man is struggling with this situation for the last almost 10, 12 years. 8,000 contract labor, casual labor, your own people, unionization. That's Rajara Mines, this was is now the heart of the whole Maoist movement and stuff. It's a dangerous place people go to. And this man was the deputy personal manager of captive mines for the steel plant. So I went in with my frameworks and stuff, and all you need to do was analytical mind and concept and frameworks, and I told him, I think this is what you need to do. So in his own little way, he got back at me and said, "Vix ki goli lo or chik chik tum karo." I mean, the process of management and leadership is a little bit more than that. So really, that was a mistake, or what it's that event, and it's like almost photo memory, kind of remains in my mind, and I'm constantly reminded actually to respect the experiences of other people, where everybody walks that path, and that's my learning. Every path is not the same, but success is not a point to be reached, and may the first man win. Success is many points across the path, and you have to draw your own line of where that is. So when you come with these frameworks, and you sometimes end up showing disrespect to the experience of others and the successes that they have achieved. And this was actually it's something that has stayed with me. I don't know if it's a mistake or what, but it definitely was a huge learning. Thank you.
Yeah. I correct two mistakes. The first one was in the second year of my career, I was posted in a factory in the industrial relations department. So we were actually in the middle of a wage negotiating settlement. I was also part of the team. Those days when you are young, you want to suddenly prove to your bosses that you are capable of much more. So I had a lot of enthusiasm. I thought, I will strike a deal or a rapport with the union leaders, and then I will change the negotiations. So I had this great idea of taking one of the union leaders out for a drink, because that's where you can really have a great rapport. And my idea was that I will get him drunk nicely, then learn all the strategies from him. So what happened in the end was we went out for a drink, and I never knew these union leaders are seasoned drinkers. So I ended up spilling all the management beans rather than learning from them. The next day my boss called me and said, "What have you done?" So that was one. Second was in one of the industrial relations,
work and things like that. So again, those days you want to be very machoistic and say no. So there was a big argument, and I actually started fighting with those guys. You know, even trying to open my shirt and all that stuff because they said, "Sir, you have to face the music." I said, "Come on, let me face the music." So that was a big fight. But the biggest lesson I learned from there was when I came back and I told my boss that you know what, I've fought with these guys. He said, "Yes, very good. Tomorrow morning, you have to go and talk to all those guys whom you fought." So it was such a difficult thing for me to do because just previous night, all kinds of profanities were exchanged, and I was also just standing there and then, "Come on, yeah, what's happening?" But the next day, just because my boss pushed me, I went there. For the first 1 hour, nobody came and talked to me. But slowly, they came and talked. And today, in ABB, they are best friends. And over a period of time, it's so changed. They really appreciated the fact that the next day I came and talked to them. So the big lesson I learned was, particularly, when you deal with people, it's okay to have a difference of opinion, but it should be, only contextual, and do not carry it forward. If you carry it forward, then the bridge becomes, the gap becomes too big to bridge. So that's it.
Thanks.
Okay, why don't we open it up to the floor? We take questions from the floor. If you have questions for a specific speaker, direct it to them. Otherwise, everyone will kind of address your questions. Are there any questions? Yeah, the mic in the back, right?
Don't ask me what kind of drink I had. I forgot.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sir. So my name is Radhakrishnan.
This is working, you take this.
So, in context to my first job, I wanted to ask how important is balance in our first job? I mean, should we immerse ourselves to the task at hand, or do we balance it with other life activities as well?
I think it's very important you have this balance because after some time you'll burn out. So the zeal is there in everybody to all of us in our first jobs tend to do more than we can because you want to show that you're the best, you want to grow fast. But yes, I think you must maintain that balance because otherwise they'll think that burnout and it doesn't work. It will affect your health or you'll quit the job. So I think yes, that balance is very dexterous. How much of balance is something that you have to decide for yourself. But yes, I think give yourself, like they say, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So I think you will have to give yourself that space for your hobbies, something that you cherish, that will help you rejuvenate. So I think very important to have that balance, absolutely.
Anyone else want to address that?
Is the biggest difference between the academic life and the corporate life?
No big difference. It's difficult to point out.
Question for the point.
What is the biggest difference?
It's,
maybe this addresses your question. One of your board of governors from IIM Kashipur mentioned this to me and it made tremendous amount of sense. He said, what's the difference between management education and medicine? And and we talked about it for a bit. So what's the difference between management education and medicine? Medicine, you practice, you teach, so both are kind of intermixed with each other. No doctor ever goes out and attends to a patient who has not actually had some clinical experience and exposure. So therefore that's how medical education is. As far as management education is concerned, sometimes you miss that little practice part, right? So sometimes it's too academic, right? Which is good, like I said earlier, that academic means that at 80,000 feet you get to see the world through eyes of many, many people. And when you move into corporate life, there's a little bit of reality that hits you, right? And that reality can hit you in a nice way, can hit you in a bad way. You get a chance practice a lot of what you kind of learned. So that's a big difference. It's like learning medicine and now actually practicing and doing that well. So it's not an exam anymore at the end of the day that you have to kind of pass. It's what opportunities you grab and how you grab them and what you make of them. So I guess I'd rather somebody else has an answer.
According to me, what I feel is when you talk of academic life, you're one big process. You're the recipient of knowledge, you're the recipient of various things. There's very little which you're contributing. Well, there may be ways in terms of, if you're part of an organizing committee or a program or whatever, that's different. But the basic objective while you're in a business school or a management school is to acquire that knowledge. Whereas when you step into the corporate life, it becomes more of a quid pro quo. You contribute your knowledge and your expertise and you produce results, and in turn the organization provides you with things like training, remuneration, whatever, career progression, so it becomes more of a two-way thing. So that is the transition, or that is the difference. So
yeah, the other difference I can really point out is, I think somebody also mentioned this earlier here, is fairness. Till the time you are in college, everything is very fair. Somebody tops the class, you know why, because of the marks. But when you come to the corporate world, somebody might get a promotion, somebody might get the, so there can be always a lot of, things which are very subjective. And, we always say running a company is not a democracy. And there's always a lot of fairness. But the thing is, we need to learn to deal with it rather than to use that as a source of frustration. So life is not going to be fair after you leave college.
Important way I look at it is in college, you pay and you learn. Then actually you learn and you're paid for that. Because I think any person has to be a learning individual in an organization. And as you learn in the company, actually you're paid. So when you go to an organization, as you learn, you also find that you're paid for it. But I think that's perhaps the way I look at it. That you're fortunate in an organization where there's a learning opportunity for you. And you must look at such companies. That's something that will enthuse you to sort of stay and grow. Because learning is something that is going to give you the cutting edge.
Right, other questions?
Dr. Deepak, I couldn't help but notice that almost all of you talked about the importance of ethics and the importance of having a moral compass. But when we look at the past, let's say 5 or 10 years, we see that executives and CEOs who graduated from some of the top schools turn out to be the most corrupt ones. So, do you think that education can play a role in making the budding managers more ethical? Because as such, I feel that it's more at a personal level, being ethical. So, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, one is definitely education can play a big role, but in the end, everybody, when we grow up and when we become adults, we know what is right and wrong. Right? So that's, for example, I can talk about ABB. ABB is one of the most ethical companies. We do not pay a single paisa bribe to anybody. Were we like this all the time in the 100 years of history? No. But we have also learned it through the hard way. We have paid, fines of almost $100 million. But let's say in the last 10 years, we have transformed ourselves. I can narrate you an incident where in one of our sites, one of the labor department person came and just made a observation and said, this is not, if you also look at our labor laws, some of them just cannot be followed. For example, in Factories Act, you have a provision where spittoons need to be provided at every 100 meters. Today none of the our factories, you can never think of having a spittoon. But if the inspector comes, he can raise it up to him and say, you're violating the act and, start prosecution and things like that. So it so happened that this person gave us a notice, and in the end, when one of our guys went to answer that, he said, look, I need some money, $10,000. and we can negotiate, which means he can actually settle down for, let's say, somewhere around 6,000-7,000 bucks. But we said no, we will not pay. He really threatened us, it will have the dire consequences. He said no, we will not pay. So he actually went ahead, prosecuted us, even to the level of our managing director getting a non-bailable bailable arrest warrant. He came, and then both me and my managing director went to in front of the magistrate. We pleaded guilty. The whole thing cost us about more than 1.5 lakhs. But we still said we will not pay back. We will go and plead guilty and pay the fine to the court, not to the labor office. Like this, I'm sure there are several examples. Because every company, of course, exists to make money, but in the end, if you really see all the successful companies which leave a heritage, money was always a byproduct. They existed for a larger reason. So, if the ethical values are not the fundamentals, then you will find over a period of time, let's say 50 years, 60 years, you need the ethics as fundamentals to for a company to stand that long.
Yeah, I think ethics is not something that is only to be worried about for a boardroom chat. Ultimately, it gives you that conviction, the personal belief, happiness. So you decide whether you want to be ethical, not ethical. Let's be honest. It's not an easy. It's not easy to walk the talk. Let's be very honest. We see the news yesterday. We've been seeing so many things also. And there have also been the past big titans who have awarded awards for ethics, and then they're all in fact one of them is in the jail. So it's not easy. It's not easy. Let's be honest in this world. But ultimately, it's your personal conviction. As Raja said, even the TVS company is proud to say that it's a very ethical organization. And we walk the talk, and we also had instances, I've told the past time, we have just 10 months, but we're exactly the organization, the management felt that we are prepared to pay that fine to the government, officially, legally, whatever it takes, but we will not reach the palm of any official. So that's a call. That's why I said, when I said DNA sometime before, I said, this is something you need to see for yourself. Is the organization we are going to work with, is it in sync with your own family values, your own system, your own ethics? I think you're all future leaders, and you must be honest. And if everybody here takes a pledge that I will be honest, I'm sure we will have tons of companies which are honest. And let's make this a honest nation. Making business ethical way is something that we all like to have. And I think if you are steadfast in what you want to do, I think you can do that. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be tough. You're going to have opportunities where you're going to be tempted to take a shortcut. But if you desist from that, you say, no, I'm going to be honest. But that's what my college has taught me, IIM has taught me, my family has taught me, this country has taught me. I think we can make this a great nation. Maybe the world over, I think we'll all enjoy working. Today it's a tough world, but yes, we can make a change. And I think as youngsters, you have a big role to make this world, ethical world, as you go forward.
I think there is one comment from my side. When you talk of ethics, what I firmly believe is ethics are not something which can be taught. Either you have it in you or you don't. And it tends to be too situational or contextual. In a given context, given situation, how do you deal with it? And ethics just doesn't have to do with the financial aspect. It's, as my colleague over here mentioned, got to do with whether you can actually walk the talk in a given situation. I'll just leave with that.
This is a big controversial area. I believe it's a very, very controversial area. And it's something that not only you are struggling with, but a whole lot of this country is actually struggling with that issue of losing our role models, not knowing what kind of what to hang on to, which is upright, honest, and has integrity. So whether you look at no disrespect to anyone, whether you look at healthcare, or you look at education, or you look at industry, or you look at government, or you look at courts administration, or you can look at whatever you want. And you come away slightly kind of disappointed or undermined by what you see. And I think I like the answer that if that world has to change, we have to learn new role models. And hopefully, people sitting in this room will become the role models of tomorrow. And use their own moral compass to decide what is right and wrong. And the other thing is, part of the issues that we saw since 2007, 2008, what has kind of surfaced, is partly ethics and it's also greatly sustainability, where corporate leadership has, and I know that that is part of IIM Kashipur's mission and vision and what it actually wants to do and achieve. So I think it's the right question that you asked, which is on sustainability, which is how much of corporate leadership is going to become short-term oriented, results today, the trading mentality of the EPS per quarter kind of stuff, and what it makes corporate leadership do, how reward programs in corporate for senior leadership create kind of deviant behavior that ultimately come. So it's all about, organizations like these that want to be there for the longer term and have a corporate leadership that has the courage to take a stand and be there for the longer term. Not only, and so then it becomes an issue bigger than ethics. It becomes an issue of how do we create sustainable performance. How will you ensure that there's a legacy that you leave behind with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 20 years later will still continue to produce the kind of performances that you have produced, and therefore believing in those institutions. And I think that's been the disappointment since 2007, 2008, that corporate leadership really hasn't lived by that agenda and has tended to narrow its vision and narrow its thinking and its action down to quarterly earnings and a very short-term kind of a orientation. And that short-term orientation hasn't shown up only when it comes to ethics. It's come up when it comes to use of natural resources, employment, and a whole bunch of other things that we can kind of talk about. And I know that IIM Kashipur has a passion for sustainability, and I'm sure that the conversations that you will have over the next 1 or 2 years will empower you to, make a change as far as this is concerned.
Things are not driving. It includes concepts of treating other people like our own, as your own. Shankaracharya said, Atmavateva Paranati Pashyata. That is, look at others also like yourself. In Yaksha Prashna in Mahabharata, when all the 4 Pandava brothers had died because they didn't listen to Yaksha, then Yudhishthir goes and then this fellow asks 4 questions and he answers all those 4, and after that he says, okay, now I'll bring to light one of your brothers, you can name them. And he says, okay, Nakul, let him be. So he asked, why Nakul? He's your stepbrother. Why did you ask your own brother? Then he says, Dharma eva hato hanti. Dharma only, it kills the person who kills it. Dharmo rakshati rakshita. It protects the person who protects it. And andrishamsyam paro dharma. Feeling a fellow human being is the pinnacle of dharma, and therefore I seek that. So it is that, in Sweden, in maybe ABB, a man was taking his American counterpart to his factory. So when he was parking his car, he was parking it at the far end, when there were lots of, so that they can park it and quickly reach the gate. So do you look at it from other person's point of view? You see, that's most important. Thank you.
So far, be it in our schools or the colleges we are studying in, it's the faculty members who have mentored us. But as we progress from academia to industry, how do we find good mentors in the firms we join?
let me admit, it's not been easy, at least in my experience as of the colleagues will have different views. You'll be fortunate if you have a good mentor in manager. And it's been a mixed bag for me. That's why I've maybe moved across organizations. Even the college, because I have a daughter who is studying, and she tells me there are some lecturers who are extremely caring, extremely supportive, give a lot of guidance, and some of them perhaps go through the motions like they do any other job. So I'm not too sure if everybody in every college is a great mentor. So I can be wrong, I can be corrected, but that's my personal view at least. So in an organization, we do have this concept of buddies and doing induction, somebody has to support you and take you along and help you sort of settle into the organization. But I'm not seeing it to be a great success. Mentoring, I think, is again a personal value. Like Harsh mentioned, I think about ethics. Mentoring is something that comes with you. There's a coaching federation and things like that. They teach you to be a coach, different coach and mentor. But I think some people have this in them, some don't have it. Some HR people, sorry to say, don't have it. Some people in the line function may have it. So if you're fortunate, I think you're lucky to have that. Perhaps one thing is, as you go into the organization, you start working with people, you pick on people with whom you sort of vibe well and you believe that they have something to offer to you. I think you'll have to approach them, work with them and seek their guidance, support. I think they will be somebody who could be a teacher, a coach, a mentor, to learn and navigate through the labyrinths of an organization, as I may call that, but there are also dynamics that play in an organization. So somebody can guide you. I'm not saying just from a domain perspective, in terms of management support, in terms of leadership support, in terms of helping you work as a team member. They can be like a father figure for you in an organization. That's something I think you will have to informally also pick. There could be organizations where they have formally present coaches and mentors. We don't have.
Of course, it's great to have somebody else, who's slightly senior as your mentor, but most of the times, because we all believe, particularly when you start working, if you are your own best critic, and you actually report to your own consciousness. Reporting to a boss or to somebody else is, only a secondary. But primarily, in the end, you report to your own consciousness. So sometimes, mentor, like, so you can, strike off these relationships, maybe in one company and it may not be in another company. So it's all, again, it depends on what you're looking for. Are you looking for your mentor to sort of give you some tips of how to get a quick promotion or how to get a better performance rating? Then, you could be quite disappointed. So it all sometimes, use your own values and beliefs to be your best friend. Yes, we all know.
Let me close the session by saying all the difference. So good luck to you all, and let's break for lunch. Thank you.
I would like to thank all the panelists for enlightening us with their valuable insights on the topic of track progression from academia to industry. Well, as a token of gratitude, we'd like to present our guest with a memento. For that, I call upon Professor Conrad Lamji, please with the honors, and you can please come on stage.
I love to do this.
Deepak, please. Professor Amitabh.
But if you want it, you can buy it in any of the stores, and you would have done your little bit towards, better education across the world. That's it.
We have a big round of applause, please. Thank you so much, sir. Well, Natasha, I'm sure you have heard about the Indian online success stories like Flipkart and Flipkart. Have you heard of the matter by the way?
Oh yes, it is the website that reviews restaurants, right?
Well, yes, started as foodiebay.com by an IT Delhi graduate, has grown by leaps and bounds. It was featured among the 25 most promising internet companies by leading business magazines.
Well, all of us have suffered the database of all the local restaurants and eating joints. But
add some lime into it and pour some of ice and create a new thing. And that's also necessary, of course. But all of you won't get the opportunity to do this type of creative stuff every day. It's more around how you do things better. And that is creativity. So it's not so difficult. You don't need to be a jazz pianist to be able to do creativity. You can do creativity where you are. Okay? And again, how do you develop that? Many ways. But the other aspect of creativity is initiative. Having a big idea and doing nothing about it is like having no idea. I had a big idea. So, okay. I've had many ideas that have had no use. I can't take any credit for that. And the worst thing is the person who says, yaar, usne kar liya, maine bhi wo socha tha. Actually, I had already thought about that. Forget it. You missed the boat. You didn't do anything about it. So it's creativity with initiative. Okay? Now, the worst thing that you can be is an eager behavior that comes up with an idea every minute to your boss and becomes a pain in the backside. So you need to have insight. You need to be able to understand how to handle this, right? It's not like, sir, make more ideas. Sir, make more ideas. Sir, I have another idea, sir. I'm going to show you something. There's a point to it. But it's how your mind works. How you're constantly looking at creative. Creative is big, small, doesn't matter. Both matter. Okay? Now again, with this attribute, if you don't have it, there are ways to develop it. Before it's too late. You can still do it. Another 10 years from now, your probability of doing that goes down. Because it becomes more difficult. And the last one is another one where you can do a lot. And I was talking last night at dinner, and we were talking about how theatre is one tremendous way in which this can be built, but it's one particular attribute, and that is what I call presence or gravitas, coupled with interpersonal skills. What does presence mean? If you are a big leader, you will command a presence in your own style. This is very important. People think, presence means you need to be, 7 feet tall and very broad and you need to be able to, no, not at all. Not at all. You may be a very quiet, very shy guy, doesn't matter. But when you speak, you will have a presence. People will listen to you. You will find in your group discussions, do you have group discussions here? In your studies and such? You will find there are some people when they talk, everybody listens. There's some people when people talk, when that person talks, other people also start talking at the same time. Because they don't listen to what he or she is saying. Don't think about it. I know it's a bit awkward to say this, but you'll always find that. You'll find in some groups and some situations, some people just seem to communicate, seem to cut through. Have you noticed this? Right? The style doesn't matter. There are a million different styles, and I can assure you, everyone sitting in this room has their own unique style, and that's the beauty of management and beauty of humankind, right? Everyone is unique. We all have our own different histories and paths, right? But we will have our own presence. And if you don't have that, and if you feel, I'm not able to communicate through, I'm not cutting through, there are things you can do to develop. Again, you have time now. As time goes on, your probability gets lower and lower. So, bottom line, and I'm just running out of time. What does industry want? Okay? And I'm talking about at the topmost level, I'm talking about CEOs of big multinational corporations, big divisional CEOs handling, $2-3 billion of revenue with, say, 10,000 employees, that sort of people. right? Which is where, by the way, each of you needs to become one day. That's what each of you wants to become, because that's what you said you're going to be. You want to be leaders, right? I have no reason to doubt that. The fact that you are here in IIM Kashipur, you are sitting here in this hall, means you have earned that right. Now the question is, what are you going to do with it? So what does industry want? They want leaders. What do leaders do? They do those three things. What were the three things? Let's hear. What was the first one? Okay, what's the second one? Energize. Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, and in order to demonstrate that you have the potential to be a great leader, which is, by the way, what you need to be doing at this stage, there are 5 things you need to look at. 5 things. Now, what I've not talked about here are some other factors that influence this, like your values. If you're a chore, basically, in your heart, you're not going to get anywhere. Okay? Integrity. Not only integrity in terms of chori nahi karta hu, or karti hu. Integrity in terms of the integrity of thinking, the purity of your thinking, the quality of your thinking, the non-compromising. Let me tell you, there are some amongst you who, on the day before a project has been submitted, are taking shortcuts. Stop it. Don't do it. Because you're training yourself in the wrong way. I know it because I did it. I suffered for it. I'm just telling you as bluntly as that. And as I'm saying this, I'm sure there are some of you thinking, "Hi, I've got this." Don't do it. You have a golden opportunity. Train yourself from now. Okay? So integrity is one thing. The other thing, there are factors like mobility, risk taking. There's some other factors that are outside this. But basically, these are the 5 characteristics that define your potential. These are the 5 characteristics. If you can master these 5 characteristics, you will get into a position of guarantee. Okay, and it's a conclave, so it's a secret, don't want to get into it. Okay? You will get into a position. Now, once you're there, and along the way as well, you need to demonstrate those 3 things. And if you're not doing all 3 all the time, you're missing something. Keep thinking about it. And if you do all of that, I can tell you that you will lead India. You will lead the world, not just India. You will lead the world. I'll end with one little story which happened was it last week actually? I think it was last week. Sorry about this feedback. It was last week. So on my Inchcape board, we have a number of very senior people. The group CEO of Imperial Tobacco, the group chairman of Debenhams, the group CEO of 3i, one of the biggest investment banks in the world, chairman of Greenhill, which is one of the most elite management consultants in the world. They all sit on our board, and we had the annual dinner with them. And I'm the only Indian in that environment. Actually, not right. Now we have another person who's Vicky Bindra, who's running MasterCard for Asia Pac, right? He's the president and CEO of MasterCard. And so I was sitting next to Simon Borrows, who's the group CEO of 3i, right? Very senior man. He's one of Britain's 100 richest people. He, for his birthday, he hired a 747 jumbo and took all his friends to his villa in France that had taken 6 years to complete. Now, he's a different character. He was sitting next to me, and I was sitting there thinking, yes, I'm Indian. He's not from, he can't do this. So he sat down and then he said to me halfway through, he says, "So a lot of Indians seem to be becoming CEOs of big corporations now." Very nice guy, actually very decent guy. Because he was talking about Ivan Menezes, who is running Diageo now. He was a college senior now. And Ajay Banga is running MasterCard. And Rakesh Kapoor is running Reckitt Benckiser. My boss is on the board of it. So, there are a lot of Indians who are now leading. People who have come out just like this. One day they were sitting like this, in a room like this. Some Indians are talking to them as well, right? And suddenly something clicked in my mind. I said, well, no, I'm not sure I agree with you. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, look about it. Think about it. A sixth of the world is Indian. A sixth of the world is Indian. If you take the Fortune 500, that means roughly how many companies should have Indian CEOs? 18. That's about 70, 80 companies ought to have Indian CEOs, and I'm not seeing that yet. They just laughed. I said, no, I actually mean that. I mean that very seriously. Because I know that great Indian leaders are at least as good, if not better than the best there is. I believe this. I'll never stop believing this. I hope you never stop believing it. I wish you all the very best. Thank you very much.
can be done. They energize and inspire people. They always deliver beyond expectations. Thank you so much, sir, for such a wonderful talk. It was really thought-provoking and actually made us all introspect. I request our Director Gautam Sinha, Professor Gautam Sinha, to present Mr. Tony George with a memento. Sir.
Can we have a big round of applause, please?